Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Scary Stories. I am one of your hosts, Chris Stashu.
Oh, and I'm the other one, Emma. Hello.
Can't really introduce you every time. If you're one of the hosts, you can do it yourself. You remember how to do it.
I'm getting used to it.
You were your own host at one point.
I was. That's true. I was. I should know how to do this. You're correct.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, should. How dare you not remember? I'm kidding.
It's just been so long.
That's fair. Hey, you know what, though? We're doing another r/paranormal, folks. Why are we doing r/paranormal? Because the internet is a fun place, and people on the internet have interesting stories to tell. Like always, couple things that we're going to be talking about. We will be mentioning the names of the accounts and the account holders that are posting these, along with the upvotes and downvotes, and links in the episode description if you want to go and check out these articles for yourself, and you should, because guess what? There aren't enough places on the internet with user-created content about paranormal stuff. And if you're into this stuff, you're probably already there anyways. And you know what? I, for once, am going to turn the floor over to somebody else. And Emma, why don't you get us started on an r/paranormal? Because it's been a minute since you and I have done one of these together.
I know, and I love these so much. And, it's funny. This was the one thing from my old show that I insisted that we bring into this one because I knew how much fun they're so much fun to record. And I love hearing other people's stories. I love reacting to other people's stories. The cool thing about when I did this on the old show is that I had my co-host, who I believe to be much more of an expert in this stuff than I am, to sort of rate whether or not he thought it was, legit based off of his idea of what he thinks is legit in the world of paranormal. I am definitely no authority in that. So I'm just here to shoot the shit. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So this one is by Creepy-Total 8241. My friends and I used an Ouija board and a glass ashtray. Glass ashtray. Say that for me. Glass
ashtray.
That was weird. My friends and I used an Ouija board and a glass ashtray busted in half. So, when I was in high school, my friends and I were into really spooky shit that we had no business messing around with. We would visit cemeteries at night, go to our small town's local haunt spots to try to stir up any urban legends, but the story I'm about to tell made us quit cold turkey trying to seek out the paranormal. One night, we were over at our friend's century-old home. I mean, it was old and creaky and the perfect setting for a night of a Ouija. We brought it out, and just for the first half hour, nothing insane happened. Just some movement from the planchette. Then, feeling smug, I asked the spirits what my middle name was. The thing is, my middle name is literally made up by my parents. It's not a real name. No one in the circle knew, let alone could spell my middle name. There was literally no way someone could even guess it. But the board knew. It spelled my middle name perfectly, and I could feel my heart fall into my gut. Keep in mind, my hands were not on the planchette, so I couldn't have moved it myself. Everyone laughed because what a silly middle name that would be, but I had to confess that it was mine, and the color drained from everyone's face. All of a sudden, a glass ashtray that was sitting a few feet away on the coffee table split clean in two, and we were done. We left the house to go stay somewhere else, and fortunately, I have never experienced anything that terrifying ever again.
Oh, boy. What are as always, what are the upvotes? What are the downvotes? And what do the comments have to say? The comments I feel like are always a good barometer here in the world of user created content, especially these folks at r/paranormal, because these folks are reading this stuff every day. And I feel like they're seeing so much of it that they're always on point. The folks at r/paranormal, I got to give them a shout out. They know their shit in the comments. So what are they saying here? What's kind of their take on this?
Well, this one's 400 upvotes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
But I honestly just think it's because it's entertaining. Most of the time, I feel like they upvote just because it's entertaining. And then obviously downvotes just sort of even it out. It's not really a separate count.
Right.
But, well, of course, the most important thing is people asking, well, what is your middle name? Now I want to know.
Right.
Guess. I dare you. You will never guess. I don't even know how to pronounce this out loud.
Is it Horace?
It's not.
That's a shame.
I'm going to spell it, and then you're going to tell me how you think it's pronounced, because I have no earthly clue.
Okay.
Ready? Hey, A, D, D, L. That's it.
Cattle?
That's what I'm thinking, but I don't think that's right.
I mean, it might be. I don't know what is that made up of. Again, this person is saying that this is a creation of their parents solely. So look, I've never KADDL. I've never seen that before. So that is a creation of their parents. Look, I think again, like anything else, if we assume that they're on the level and they're being honest and they're being serious, and this is not a lark. This is not some
fucking terrifying.
Right. I mean,
how?
I mean, again, it comes down to a couple questions. If you believe in spirits and spirit energy, do you believe that spirit energy can manipulate things? Because like a glass ashtray, it could break, but you'd have to have it really hot and then have it be really cold afterwards, and that would break it. But like, I don't think you could even break one in your hand. Like, I don't think you could snap one in a solid one. I'm imagining a heavy duty ashtray. I don't know about you. Like,
I mean, I haven't been around a lot of them.
I'm expecting it's like a big glass ashtray, and that would not be easy to break in half.
But then it also makes me wonder, like, how often does something like that just happen in paranormal stories? Like, how common is it for an item to not like fall and break, but to just simply break in place, which I would personally think is much more terrifying than something falling and breaking? Because you could say like, oh, somebody banged into a wall, somebody jumped, a breeze, and you can't really explain away an item that nobody is touching simply breaking in place. That is terrifying.
It is. So
it's interesting though, because so the reason I picked this one specifically, and I do have a reason why I picked this one, is because, and I think I've told you this story maybe on the podcast, maybe not. Feel like I have. Correct me if I have. But when I was, for a very brief time, I was a pseudo counselor at a sleepaway camp when I was like 17. And I say pseudo because I was taking care of like staff 3-year-olds. I wasn't really a counselor. But I had some friends there that were counselors, and one of them had an Ouija board. And it was like nighttime. They invited me and a couple of other people to like go to this like creepy building. You know, I think it was, God, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was like a dance, like auditorium or something. Like a big wooden floor in a stage. And basically, like, we sat on this wooden floor, turned off the lights at night, just dead of summer, like 5 of us maybe. He brings out this Ouija board. He has like this whole system. Like, he's using a lighter and like drawing a pentagram in the air with his flame, and like says things and tells us like the whole thing. Like, it was a true ritual. I don't know whether or not it was an accurate ritual, but it sure was a ritual. And I had to use an Ouija board when I was like super little. My sister had one and it scared the shit out of me, but that's because I was little and everything scared the shit out of me. So I can't really say whether or not we had a paranormal experience. But this time they were asking a lot of questions. Like, we were all sitting around. I had my hand on the planchette. Everybody was asking questions. And then it was like my turn. They were like, you should ask something. And I was an insecure ass kid. And basically what I had asked, almost similar, was if I had lived up to my middle name. So not to spell my middle name, which honestly would have been more convincing to me in the moment if they could. It was my Hebrew name, which I sometimes consider like an offshoot of my middle name. It's adjacent. It actually would have been really cool if I had them spell it, because it's spelled Bracha, which nobody would think.
And it just like this guy's, guy's middle name, right? Like, person. So
it means blessing, which was given to me because my mom had 2 miscarriages before me, and so that's a big thing to live up to. And so I was like, I'll ask the spirits if I lived up to being a blessing like my mother wanted. I was a very insecure 17-year-old. And it said yes. And I just remember bursting into tears as if it were just like this massive emotional experience out of nowhere. Not like sobbing, but just like I was moved, like immediately moved, which I wouldn't say is uncommon, but it was a little weird how sudden it was. And so I was just like, oh, this is kind of similar experience. I felt a bit of a kinship. Obviously, that's my much less convincing to me. I wish I'd said, spell my Hebrew name. That would have been way more convincing. I kind of wish I did. Honestly, looking back, I kind of wish that's what I asked instead. And then I could have done the follow-up of, did I live up to it? I just wanted to hear it. I just needed to be reassured. Point is that if this is the case, then everybody, nobody knew what the name was. Because that's always the thing, is like, is somebody moving the planchette?
Yes,
that's always
everybody's
whenever it comes
moving
to
the planchette.
I mean,
it's
like,
a tacit agreement between everybody that nobody wants to be disappointed by it not doing anything. I'm not saying
right.
Ouija boards don't work, because I've been told by people who have fucked around with them not to. And I don't think they're just saying that for thematic effect. But at the same time, I don't think everybody, it's like anything else. It's like someone who picks up a gun isn't going to necessarily hit the target by pointing it and shooting. Just like someone picking up a Ouija board is not going to necessarily commune with the other side of the veil just because they're moving the planchette around, and I would hope that that's the fucking case, because otherwise it's a real big problem that there's just Ouija boards out there where people can do, just communing. Oh yeah, great. Like, I fucking hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've heard in the past is that it's not that the planchette itself moves, but it's that like the energy is moving through like your hands to guide it. So it is sort of like you're moving it, but you're not conscious of moving it. Sort of, I think.
Yeah, sure. Or I could just, prove to me that it's moving. I'm going to take my hands and sit on them, and you do the same. And if it starts moving, then it's moving on its own. Otherwise, we're still moving it, But
I think like spiritual people acknowledge that it's not moving on its own. I just can't vouch for the explanation, but I'm pretty sure there's some like energy explanation that I've heard before that I can't remember.
I'm less worried as to whether or not I'm moving it or not, or whether or not the motions I'm moving it in are yielding anything of value, right?
Yeah.
Again, I assume someone who knows what they're doing, because you don't just have a Ouija board and that's it. Like you're using it in tandem with other things. Normally, if it's someone who knows what they're doing, they're not, I'm not just sitting here with you on Zoom going, all right, I'm moving my Ouija planchette around and I'm doing it. Like there is a rhyme and reason to it, which is why I think it's like giving most people a Rubik's Cube and say, solve that, and I'll give you $100. Most people go, I could be $100 poorer and not care because I already was. Like, I'm not going to fuck around with a Rubik's Cube because I don't understand how to make it look the way it's supposed to be solved any more than I think people are fucking around with a Ouija board knowing what they're doing. The people that aren't doing it, because I do think that there is something to it. I just think most people are just, the energy is moving through me. Yes, it is. I bet it is.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to discount it. It's just everybody can go buy a Ouija board. Then why isn't everybody summoning something?
That's a good question. And I think that it's happening more often than you think. But then it's also like, I hear opposing things. I hear like there's a correct way to do it. And then there's an incorrect way to do it. And there's a correct way to actually achieve something with it in a way that like nothing will happen. And then there's like the way to like close it correctly and incorrectly, which is like a whole other thing. But talking specifically of like the whole, like there is a correct and an incorrect way to use an Ouija board, which I think has to do with the whole like ritualistic aspect of it and the setup. And like some people, like you hold your breath for like 10 seconds to show that you're revering the fact that you're talking to people that can't breathe. I don't know. I've heard like a lot of like weird shit. It's like turn off all the lights and you want to make sure that they're candles. But then other people are like, all that matters is that like you very politely say goodbye at the end. There are so many like weird rules, and it makes you wonder, like, because there's so many people that are like, why is the spiritual, apparent spiritual thing being mass produced by Hasbro? And I would argue it's not the item itself, but it's how we use the item. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody with the right types of tools to help channel something, it could be anything. I mean, there are people that print out Ouija boards and give it the same meaning and the same purpose, make a planchette out of paper. It's less about the physicality of it and more about the meaning you assign to it. The same way that people, use tarot cards and use, you know, like they're like dowsing rods and pendulums. Like, I think it's all the same thing. It's just that like Ouija boards have a real bad rap.
Well, they're
And,
also
like,
very it's very theatrical. Spell this out.
it is.
Dowsing, pendulums. If it's going clockwise, it's yes. If it's going that's an analog, right? Like yes or no. Dowsing is similar. Like this is spell, like you said, tell me my middle name. I mean, that's this whole story is predicated on because you've told me my middle name, therefore anything that happens from here on out is possibly intervened by some other spirit, right? That's my assumption with this story. Something has made its presence known by letting you know it knows something about you that it could not know, that it should not know. And then it breaks an ashtray to what end is my question? To scare you? To stop you from doing this?
Warning. I mean, like there are a lot of I get angered it showed you that it's powerful.
But that's the thing. I would think a malicious spirit would not warn you. Like in The Exorcist, it's not like Pazuzu warned Reagan and was like, "Hey, stop doing that, or I'm going to possess you." I think a lot of these things that we're seeing are people interacting with positive energy that's telling them like, "You need to stop what you're doing now, because if I'm not the one here, it could be something else that's not as benevolent as I might be." But again, like you can't even trust those spirits because, as I read in a book last year, goddamn, forget the name of it now. You can't trust anything on the other side. You can't trust what we don't know and what we can't know. What we literally
and
can't
I've heard
know.
That too.
Right. Like if a spirit came to me tomorrow saying it's my grandfather, I'm not going to fucking believe it's my grandfather. No fucking way. Even if it told me everything he knew, any piece of like private information that only he and I could have known, no fucking way would I believe it's my grandfather, my grandmother, anybody, because there's just no way to prove it. Right. And there's no way to prove it.
But it's interesting that nobody's like, you know, well, I don't want to say nobody, but like most people in the spiritual community are very anti-Ouija boards, but everybody is very pro tarot cards. Obviously, like if you go on to like, you know, religious people, especially the Christian Catholics, they're like, don't fuck with any of it. It's all Satan. Don't fuck with it. You don't touch it. I don't know. It's funny because as somebody that does tarot, I was also told early on, like, you shouldn't touch any of it because you don't know what you're inviting into your life when you start doing it. I haven't had any negative experiences with it. I've been doing it quite a bit. I've done it for many people. And I feel like an Ouija board is so similar in that regard. Like the same way, like you don't know what you're communicating with. I don't know why one gets a bad rap and the other doesn't.
I honestly think they both get bad raps. I would say tarot has a bad rap. You don't think?
But not within the spiritual community.
That's okay.
Ouija boards, everybody's like, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, do not fucking touch it. Even if you do know what you're doing, don't fucking touch it. But everybody's like, oh, I just got this really pretty new deck. And it's like, fine. And I am one of those people.
But I think to your point, like, I think it is communing with energy either way, whatever that energy is, be it morphous or amorphous energy. I think that's the way I look at it. Like tarot, I think, is more interacting with amorphous, just energy in the world. And I think a Ouija board is there's an intent. Like people are doing it with intent, right? Like most people, Ouija boards, like, tell me my name, give me a piece of information. I want to commune with my grandfather, you know, whoever. And it's like, you're doing this, and with tarot, you're asking the universe to inform the cards that you're picking, I guess, or you're making an assumption about the way things are being presented to you. Ouija is pretty cut and dry. Like it can't do anything other than
that's fair.
Give you a letter. And again, if it gives me YES in YES, yes, there is nothing I can interpret that as. But if all of a sudden it gives me 10 letters that mean nothing, well, am I then supposed to unscramble it? Is it like a garbled message? Like that's the other thing, like assuming input in receives input out that is understandable too. Because again, I'm assuming.
What if you talk to a spirit that's illiterate?
Or talk to a spirit that doesn't speak English?
That's fair. That's a good point.
Why do I assume that when I go...
the idea of an illiterate ghost more, though.
I mean, I think it's interesting either way to have whatever it is on the other side be unable to respond, but do something like, again, like what would someone who's illiterate, I guess, Like, it would just be garbled letters, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Or
it's
just
another
nothing.
language, it's like they start responding SIC. I mean, yeah, get it. Like,
They just
okay.
break more ashtrays.
Yeah. I like the idea that that's like something that happened. That's like, and then the ashtray broke. It's like, holy shit. Get me the fuck out of there.
Yeah, if that's what happened, if I was sitting down at this party or whatever, this gathering, and I was like, spell my middle name, and it did, and then an ashtray broke, I also would never fuck with anything spiritual for the rest of my life.
Okay, spell get me the fuck out. Spell bye-bye, everybody. Like, I'm with you. Like, why even contemplate another thing?
Nah, like I think a lot of it has to do with intention. You know,
100%.
I mean, something that you hear a lot is like, just make sure that whatever you're talking to is of love and light. You hear that a lot. Love and light, a lot in the spiritual community. And it's like, it's interesting because people are very much like, you need to set these boundaries. Because I guess everybody says like, you never want to give demons permission. Demons need permission. Right? Like evil things need permission. So
never
don't
invite something in. Never say like, please come into my house. You're welcome here. Like with the fucking Annabelle dolls. Like you don't.
Right.
When they're like, and we invited the little girl into our house because she was scared. It's like, what are you fucking out of your minds? Like, yes, you actually are out of your fucking minds. Or like I kind of assume with Ouija, like it's less you're just out of your depth. And you're not doing anything wrong. I don't think a group of 15-year-olds who pick up a Ouija board and use it are doing anything wrong. I think it's just an immensely bad idea to fuck with things that you don't understand. And in a lot of ways, even the people who know what they're talking about still can't explain explicitly is the case. It's more theoretically, if this were the case, this is what would happen. It's like, if you fuck with Ouija, something might happen. What is happening? We don't know. How it's happening? We don't know. But sometimes when people do things with Ouija boards, ashtrays fucking break. Like, I wouldn't fuck with the Ouija board knowing that possibly shit could happen that is unexplainable. Like, this just seems like a bad idea, right?
Okay, if I was like, hey, there's this like really cool event with like some guy that totally knows what he's doing, and like you vetted him, like you knew. And I was like, and he's doing this like interactive Ouija board fucking, and I said, I could get us tickets for free.
No fucking way.
You want nothing to do with it. I'm just curious. I want your stance on Ouija boards.
I mean, again, even if he knows what he's doing, it's a blind. It's not double blind, but it's blind because he doesn't know what's on the other side of whatever he's talking to. He's talking through a one-way glass. That side can see us clearly. It has to see something to respond to, but holy shit, like we don't know what's on the other side. And so, yeah, if some guy's going, well, I can guaranteed talk to the other side. It's like, but you don't know what you're talking to. And even if you are told what you're talking to by what's talking to you, don't believe it. Because it's like you said, you can't prove it. So no, I would not. I think Ouija boards, if you know what you're doing in the right hands, you can actually create something out of a piece of plastic and a piece of cardboard.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Things throughout history have been less that have meant more to people, like two pieces of wood together. It's the same thing. Ultimately, realistically, does one even need a Ouija board to communicate? I think if you sit long enough and it's quiet enough and you quiet your mind enough and you just sit there, I think you can hear anything and hear all kinds of wild shit just going on in the outer reaches of our perception, because it's not that hard to believe. But I think if you bring something like that into your house, you're kind of setting up a lightning rod or an antenna, as it were, to kind of amplify it. Yeah.
You open a door.
I don't want to fuck with it.
You don't want to open the door?
I mean, I do, but I don't, because I don't know what if it gets opened. Is there a way to close it?
Probably not.
Popular media would lead us to believe probably not is the case. So I have a story that has nothing to do with exorcisms or ghosts or creepy Ouija boards. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more Canadian, eh? So this comes from 15 days ago, as posted by Caden J. Peters. It has 1.1 K upvotes, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
It's got a little bit of a lead up. It's got a little bit of a runway to it. So, locational context. I live on a farm on the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere in British Columbia's interior. No cell service. Neighbors are beyond shouting distance. A very on-your-own lifestyle out here. My trailer is at the top of this property next to a barn surrounded 360 degrees with forest except for the little road. The mountain, Mount Ida, has a long history with the Aboriginal people of my area. I've been told stories of the mountains since I was a kid. Basically, the summary of every story is people are banished from the mountain because the spirits make it too dangerous. All sorts of weird things have been seen and have happened on this mountain. Last night, around 10:45, I heard 3 sets of sirens rush by the road. Out here, you never hear sirens. In my cumulative 15 years here, I've heard 1 siren, and it was earlier this week. Basically, it just intrigued me at this point. Wasn't until about a half an hour later or so, and my power cuts out. I'm already in bed at this point. Lights were out. Only way I actually noticed was because I had no Wi-Fi. Now, that's always a heart stopper because no Wi-Fi out here means I'm entirely on my own. This makes me anxious for sure, but I'm more worried that I won't be able to call the fire department if something catches on fire more than anything.
Get a landline.
I like the practicality of this person. I really do. Or get a satellite phone.
Or get a landline.
Yeah, but if they're in the middle of nowhere, there's no way to get them a landline. Sounds like they're in the middle. They're in a trailer in the middle of. They said they're in the middle of nowhere on a mountain. They did say that.
They could probably find a way to get a landline.
Are you thinking that they're being hyperbolic about how in the middle of nowhere they are?
No, I don't understand landlines, but I have one still.
Clearly, you know that the landline, it has to like a pole carries it to you.
No, I don't know anything. I just know that I have one.
Oh my God. How does this work?
And guess what? When the power goes out, you can still use it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How?
I don't know how it works. I could ask my dad that someday. But every time that we've had the power and we don't have a generator, we've been crying for a generator for my entire heckin' life. And all I know is that the ring doesn't work, or it has like a weird ring. It has like a different ring when the power goes out. It's really weird.
What are we doing? We don't even know. We're such fucking millennials. We don't even understand phones anymore.
I mean, if we ever did to begin with. Z.
Oh, now it's convenient that you're a Gen Zer. All right.
It's always convenient.
Right, I bet. Well,
I hate being lumped in with millennials. They get so much shit. I don't want that.
Yeah, I hear you. So anyways, back to our friend on the mountain. Then out of nowhere, I heard this super sharp and loud cry like a kid who just crashed on a bike. Hysterical crying from what sounds to be a young child. My dogs are going absolutely nuts at the door. Now, if you're familiar with cougars / mountain lions, you should know that they can often mimic a child crying and scary accurately too. So lying there as tension builds, I'm telling myself it's a cougar. That's all. It's just a cougar. For me, it's the best case scenario right now that it's just a cougar. Dogs have finally calmed down, and I'm just still trying to get some shut-eye when I hear the second sound. This was an ungodly sound that I've never heard in my life. This sounded like a mix of every horror movie monster all in one. I can't even describe it. It was about 5 seconds of pure screeching like a demonic banshee with the vocal cords of a T-Rex. The bass to it shook my bed. It was as if there was a concert-sized sound system hiding in the forest, blasting zombie vomit. I could taste my heartbeat at this point. My dogs are acting like rabies-ridden pit bulls towards the door, snarling and growling like whatever just screamed was on the other side of the door. I didn't know what to do at this point, couldn't call or get in contact with anyone. Lights are all off. I'm just lying there in the dark, utterly and completely scared. I was not about to get up and go investigate. It's in the middle of winter, of course, too. I just lied there, checking my phone every 30 seconds, seeing if the Wi-Fi came back. Nothing else came after, though, just ended up falling asleep at some point. As of this morning, everything is back to normal. Nothing creepy going on. Power back on. Made a post in the local FB group. Nobody else in the area heard anything, and only a few lost power as well as me. So take it as you will. Cougar in heat? Bigfoot coming out of hibernation? 1,000-year-old native ghost trying to get me off his land? I'm not a very paranormal guy and no idea what it could have been at this point. Would love to hear your thoughts, ideas, and or questions. Now, I will mention this one comes with an update, which is a rarity. We haven't had one that has an update in the posting. So update. Time to update and answer a few questions and ideas from everyone. So should give us a little bit of a better idea. Maybe some what other people are talking about. So to start, it has been confirmed the sirens and the power was due to a motor vehicle incident into a power pole a kilometer or so down the road. Strangely enough, I have also found out that other siren a week ago or so was someone responding to an MVI, but in almost the exact same spot, motor vehicle incident, I'm assuming. Take that as you will. I also decided to open Reddit for the first time to see all the comments at about 1 a.m. Terrible idea. You guys have all scared the crap out of me even more. I mean, yeah, no shit. I mean, it sounds scary as it is. General update.
Yeah.
Yes, to everyone mentioning it, I do have a generator. Problem is it's up in the barn along with the Wi-Fi router. Definitely was not going to even open my bedroom door, let alone go outside after hearing that and go into the dark and creepy barn, so screw around with the generator.
Smart.
I have checked around the walkable vicinity, no tracks or anything of interest that I found, although I did not want to go searching through the forest for tracks, to be completely honest. Double smart.
Yeah.
As for gun protection, I would absolutely love to have a gun for this exact reason, but it's a hassle in Canada, and even if I did decide tomorrow was the day, it's a long process, and I probably wouldn't even have a gun until next winter, so that won't help me now. So it's a uniquely Canadian problem, isn't it?
It is. And I don't know, oddly comforting to hear somebody can't get a gun immediately, but worst scenario for it, I guess.
Right. Cougar, as I said, the first one was definitely a cougar in my opinion. I have heard many cougars throughout my life, and they've made a lot of weird noises, but that second one, I just have a tough time accepting that noise as a cougar. In the defense of it being a cougar in heat, though, the weather has been absurdly strange and very warm. It's usually about -15 this time of year, I hope. Don't know if Celsius or Fahrenheit, but it's sitting at around 0 these past few weeks. This could cause animals, including cougars, thinking it's spring, concluding to some weird behavior. Government lab, question mark? I have to unfortunately say this is most likely not the case. I have explored a lot of the mountain, as trails in my back 40 go onto Crown land and up to the rest of the mountain. It's just logging and trails up there. My area is very boring, and you would notice any type of suspicious vehicles coming in and around here, unless they're sneakily driving around mid-2000s rusted out Ford 1F50s, because there's about 3/4 of the vehicles out here are those, mine included. I would really like to believe it was some crazy one-off animal sound that was just freakishly close to my tractor, but a lot of these Bigfoot theories are very similar to what I experienced. I don't even want to think about skinwalkers that some of you were mentioning, though. Last night was okay. There was no noises, and the dogs stayed calm all night. Let me tell you, though, I fell asleep with a podcast playing just to distract myself from the quiet.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah, fuck, I wouldn't know. A podcast, anything.
Anything, any noise that isn't that. Oh, hard pass. I've heard enough. I don't even want to say with that monster. I've heard that if you even so much as utter it, it like brings it to you. Living in the country myself, I don't want to do that to myself. I don't even want to fucking repeat it. What I will say is that a similar thing happened not too long. I think it was like last summer, maybe 2 summers ago. I heard what sounded like a woman screaming in intervals for like way too long at night. I recorded it as muffled through the window as I could and like put it up on Reddit for like, what animal sound is this or some shit. Or like identify this animal subreddit. Of course it is. There's a subreddit for fucking everything. And people were like, that is a female fox. And I was like, no. And then I looked it up and I saw a video of it and somebody else's recording of it. And lo and behold, same exact sound. Most fucking terrified I have been in the comfort of my own home. Animal sounds that you don't know are so scary.
Well, you don't even know the animals make those noises. Again, like the fox thing is like that, like that, right? It's that weird, like
I will have to. No,
it's not that. Okay, because that's what I was assuming you were talking about. Was that like weird laugh thing?
No, it sounded like a blood curdling woman's scream.
So that's
in the distance,
and that's kind of again like for me. I've heard this story before. I've heard this in many variations, be it I went on my float plane to a fishing lodge in the middle of nowhere and we're on a lake and we're secluded and in the middle of the night we hear things screaming. Yeah.
Ate it.
Yeah, but also you're in nature. Like again, like I don't want to discount any of this because you're in nature is the answer to what it could be and what it couldn't be. Essentially, like you're in nature, so that's rather expansive, but you're also in nature, which means it could just be something that exists that we all know that we just don't.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
well, now I
can't
want to know.
ascribe that to. Again, like distance, location, modulation, all kinds of things play into your ability to understand and interpret and recognize something. I don't know if I heard a mountain lion screaming, I wouldn't think it was something else, because again, I've never heard a mountain lion scream in real life. I've only ever heard recordings.
Right. There is something so supremely uncomfortable about hearing it though yourself. And like knowing that whatever this thing could potentially be, which 99% of the time is an animal, that 1% real fucks with you. But now I want to know what these like Bigfoot theories are that were so convincing to him.
I mean,
like, because I've heard the other one, other friendly mountain monster ones before, which honestly, that was where my brain first went. Like, that was my first thought is, yes, that thing that everybody says never to talk about or think about, that one. But I've heard more so, like, that would make more sense with, like, the child crying. I've heard that more with, like, they mimic, like, human voices to lure people. That's what I've heard. So but the Bigfoot one, I mean, yeah, I heard that they make, like, weird noises, but, like, I'm very curious. What were people saying that were so convincing that it was Bigfoot?
Well, I mean, there are people on here that are mentioning, look at the BFRO, which is the Bigfoot Research Organization, like look at their information about Mount Ida, because again, like this is a known place, which means there will be known information, which means people will have, if there are Bigfoot sightings, they will have reported them. And per this person's comments, there are Bigfoot sightings on Mount Ida. So again, like, look, I feel like, and this is something Jess and I have talked about before, and this is something that, again, you and I haven't talked about cryptids a whole lot. We've kind of stayed in a different realm of the world, but I'm excited to talk about cryptids with you because, again, I feel like, and I'm curious your take on this, Bigfoot is kind of like an unfair catch-all that, like, I love Bigfoot. Bigfoot is my cryptid of choice, but I feel like when people hear something out in the woods, it's like Bigfoot, that's what it is. If it's not something I can identify, it's Bigfoot. And like, if everything's Bigfoot, then nothing is Bigfoot.
It's Bigfoot. Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. I would not consider Bigfoot my cryptid of choice. I feel like for the memes, I have to say Mothman, but I don't even think that's my cryptid. I have to actually think about it.
Mothman's a good one. We have the direct line to the Mothman himself, so I'm a fan of the Mothman, but he's the man. Bigfoot is the man, right?
I don't know. I feel like it's so backcountry.
Wait, is this because you want Bigfoot in New York? This summer, Bigfoot takes New York. Look at that guy's feet. They're so big.
It's just like, we get it, big monkey.
Okay, you know what? It's pronounced monk. Big monk. Look, I get it. I mean, I get it. There is a twinge of the good old boys but that's the thing. Like, Bigfoot sightings are everywhere. There are probably, if we were to go look right now on the BFRO's website, I guarantee within 100 miles of the two of us, there are Bigfoot sightings. I wouldn't assume that's surprising for either one of us, frankly. But again, if everything is Bigfoot, then what? Like, nothing is Bigfoot then, and that's, I don't know. Like, I think with this story, you do have some things that elevate it automatically. You have a real place. This person sounds genuine. I mean, why would you make up a story about yourself sleeping in a trailer? Not the most glamorous story to be telling, but you know what? Fucking vibe and a mood, and I'm here for it. And I wish I could go stay in a trailer on a mountainside somewhere. As terrifying as the shit sounds in this story, that's one time when they're hanging out in a place where they get to breathe in fresh air and be out in the wilderness, which I do appreciate. But to the same point, like, you don't have a way to protect yourself and you live in the middle of nowhere. That is a recipe for disaster, especially when you go, well, if the Wi-Fi goes out, I'm fucked if I get hurt. I'm fucked if something happens to the Wi-Fi and I happen to be hurt at the same time. Guess I'm dead. Like, okay, like, that's not great, man. So I think less worry about Bigfoot and more worry about getting something, security cameras or something, so that you don't have to open the door to see outside, because we live in a time of technology, as they would say. You could buy something to see outside and not have to be outside. It's called a Ring doorbell.
Powered, solar powered.
Yeah. They have them for deers. They put them on a deer tree and it connects to your phone. Like, there you go.
Deers.
For deers.
Did you really just
You heard what I said. I pluralized it.
How could you?
Because I can. And I did. And I do's. I do's. Look, I love Bigfoot, but I think Bigfoot has gotten lost in Bigfoot's own conversation because everything is Bigfoot now. Like, if it's a noise in the woods and there's not a regional cryptid that's in those woods, it's Bigfoot. And
so what do you think this was?
I mean, it's probably Bigfoot. I mean, that's the joke, though. Like, I wanted to say, like, the joke is, though, like, this feels like a Bigfoot sighting, but at the same time, so do a lot of these.
Yeah.
I'll say this much. There's a lot of things here that make me wonder the proximity that this thing was to them, because it sounds like it was like on top of them, which,
yeah,
like a wild animal wouldn't do that.
I mean, well, to be fair, this is the only other thing that I could think of. And that is after hearing this sound of this, like, cougar, as he says so adamantly, in the dark, in the middle of nowhere for so long. He is, I mean, like when you're listening to something outside and something spooks you, like your adrenaline gets kicked and your senses are heightened. And so now you're like hyper aware of every sound around you. So it might not have been as close as he thought it was. He just interpreted it as such. But that to be said, even if it wasn't as close, even if it was as close as he, thinks it was, I mean, there are tons of wild animals that if like you're the only trailer in the middle of nowhere, they'll come trucking through. So,
well, do you have a garbage can outside?
Yeah.
Right there. I mean, do you have a garbage that's open? I would hope not. If you live in the middle of nowhere, I would hope about proper trash disposal when it comes to being out in the wild. Because as someone who was in the goddamn Boy Scouts, I can speak to sitting in a tent while camping on a 120-mile hiking trip and hearing in the middle of the night while the bear is outside jumping for the food that's being hung up in the tree, and hearing a, however many 100-pound black or brown bear jumping to get the food bag. And I can hear it in the middle of the night. The entire camp. It's fucking terrifying because I didn't know what it was in the night. All I heard was that kind of...
Even if I knew what it was, I'd still be scared.
When I asked in the morning, it was horrifying. I was like, they were like, so you know what that noise was last night, right? And I was like,
no.
And they were like, oh, it was a fucking bear jumping for our bear bag, because the bear bag had been scratched too, because it, again, so they were like, well, the bear bag has some scratches on it, so it was probably a bear. And our tents were, I mean, you're supposed to keep your tent away from the food, obviously, because it's supposed to be far away, but it's not like it's 4 fucking miles away. It's maybe like on the other side of the campsite type thing.
Scares me. Like,
I get it.
I live in countryside, and a lot of people would argue I live in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I live in a neighborhood, so I don't live in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, we have tons of farms and shit. I will not camp unless if it is like in a RV. I'm not going to camp. I'm not going to.
That's fair.
I had to do it once when I was at a sleepaway camp, which we had cabins, which is very different. But in a tent, hard pass.
Do you feel the same way about going out into open water? Because that was something that always tripped Jess up. Like, and I get it, but for me, like, I always wondered, and I've never asked Jess, but like, you have an aversion to camping. Do you have the similar aversion to like going into open water? Because you can't like stay in open water the same way you can camp, right? Not
really. I mean, like, define open water.
Like going out on a boat and getting off of the boat. Because that's what camping is, right? Like, camping is you're going out into it and then you're in it for a while, staying overnight. But I guess you could do that on a boat. But like, would that bother you?
Well, when I was in Hawaii, I went snorkeling, so I guess not. But I was also 12, so I don't know if my thoughts and feelings about it has changed. But like, similar, we were out on a boat and then they dropped us off somewhere they stopped the boat and we got out and we did a little snorkel. I mean, I think it's one thing if I was on a boat with like some like fucking randos and they were like, hey, you want to be real fun? Let's just like fucking get out and swim for like no reason. And maybe I wouldn't, the same way that I wouldn't just go to like some unmarked trail,
Right. So
I think that,
but you're not doing camp. You wouldn't go camp at all, though.
no, I mean,
So like, hey, Emma, let's go camping. Like, let's go tents. We'll cook and everything. Like, it'll be fun.
Okay.
It'll be fall weather. It'll be all of us out there. You wouldn't even do that.
I wouldn't sleep there. I would go out. If you were like, there's this really awesome campsite and I wanted to do like a bonfire, I'd be like, sure, cool. That sounds so fun. But like, what?
I like that the limit is because you're still
I'm not sleeping there.
I get it.
Too vulnerable.
I get it.
With my arachnophobia, Chris.
I get it. I 100% understand. It's just, it's funny that that's the line, because a bonfire would have to be at night. It's the sleeping that's the problem.
Yeah. It's it's feeling protected from a tent when all of the festivities have died down. My arachnophobia could never.
At night. It's quiet out there too.
But I mean, like, it's funny because, like, growing up in the country, we were told, like, relative, bear stuff, like, don't look it in the eyes, kind of thing. Like, right. But I was also told, like, don't be afraid. Like, during the day, they want nothing to do with you. They just need to know that you're there, and they'll leave you alone. So, like, when I was, hiking with a friend, we'd either be talking the whole time or one of us would be playing music on our phones to alert. It was also a really well-traveled trail. So most of the time I've never seen even a deer anywhere near the trail.
What about deer?
Like a whole pack of them, whole bunch of them. Mainly, the majority that I would see there, turtles and birds. That's about it. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to odd sounds in the wilderness at night, I'm no stranger to the possibility of it. There was also, over the summer, there was a mysterious sound that at first sounded like a dog barking, and it just went on for way too long. And I started doing like research because I was like, is that like an owl or some shit? I spent the next hour researching owl sounds so I can match the fucking owl. And I did perfectly. I'll have to send that to you because it was weird. It was a weird call. I'll have to show you. It was weird. It went on it was a couple of nights actually that we had this this potentially one owl, I guess, in our nearby forest that I could just hear it at like 2 a.m.
I mean, I don't know how much you've looked into something like, is it the Jersey Devil? Yeah. I mean, the Jersey Devil is supposedly like an owl. Like, people have just misidentified an owl. I'm not shitting you. Like, that's
but I don't know. I found a video of an owl during the day making the same sound.
Is it not as scary?
No, not at all.
Interesting.
Once I knew it was an owl, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Owls are still pretty scary.
Yeah, but I also don't live like right on the forest. The forest is like 50, 100 feet, yards. I don't know, that way. Like, there is separation between my window and the forest. And maybe if there wasn't, maybe I'd feel differently. But we got a whole backyard separating it.
Well, and that's all that matters ultimately, is you don't have to worry about something crawling in your window at night.
Nah, I have my blinds open all night because I live on second floor. I leave my blinds open, helps me wake up at a more normal time. Love it.
And so that the Bigfoot can see you through the windows better.
Is that how big Bigfoot is?
He's watching with his binoculars out of the distance. Hello, I see you. So until the next time we do one of these, Emma, you can find me, you can find you at the same place, weirdingwaymedia.com, where you can hear plenty of episodes of this show. If you haven't heard all of them, you should. Emma hypnotizes me at one point. That was fun. If you've never heard that. Yeah, that was around this time last year, I think. Last year. Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun if you're into that sort of thing. And there's plenty of things to listen to over at weirdingwaymedia.com that have nothing to do with this show. So that's where you should go for that. For this show, Scary Stories WT on all social media. Scary Stories, if you find it on iTunes, like, rate, and review the show. Big thanks as always to Maggie the Odd and Dustin Rutledge for the album artwork. You can find Maggie on the internet at Dolan Museum. And as always, our good friend Alex Malnack provides that lovely music you hear at the beginning and the end of the show. You can find him over on Spotify. Just search Blondo. And as always, we'll let our good friend, the former host of Sightings, Mr. Tim White, lead us out.
No mystery is closed to an open mind.